So I'm here with Jim Gerstein of Gerstein Agnew Communications. Jim is a Washington pollster and strategist, has worked on many campaigns here, but also interestingly has a background working on campaigns in Israel and doing polling in Israel. Jim has just completed, and we've just released the results of a poll commissioned by us here at the New America Foundation on Israeli public opinion, Israeli attitudes to the peace process, to the Obama administration, to issues on the agenda today. We made that public now, that poll. It can be seen here at the New America Foundation website. And I'm just going to chat through some of the findings of that poll with Jim. I guess the first and obvious question, what's the headline?
The big headline is that President Obama is much stronger with the Israeli public than has been reported up until now.
Now, the reporting that I've seen in the New York Times editorial and in many other places is a 4% approval rating that Obama has amongst Israelis. Of course, he's not going to be re-elected or not by Israelis, but people seem to think it matters. What was that 4% number about, and what does this poll show?
I would start by saying that nothing in Israel garners that much. There's no monolithic opinion in Israel. And the 4% number is actually something that's been misreported. There was a poll conducted by the Jerusalem Post that said...
That's an Israeli newspaper with...
It's an Israeli newspaper that's published in English. It is basically the English newspaper of Israel, and there's no Hebrew version of it. It's but in any case, they conducted a poll that asked the question: are President Obama's policies more in favor of Israel, more in favor of Palestinians, or neutral? And the poll showed 4% saying more in favor of the Israelis, 51% more for the Palestinians, and 35% neutral. Now, two things happened here in the misreporting. One was some people just referred to it as an approval number, and it had nothing to do with his job approval or assessment of President Obama. And when they did, they said he's got a 4% approval number. The other thing is that even for those who just reported it as he's got he's more he's only 4% say he's more supportive of Israel or more pro-Israel. It ignored the 35% that said he was neutral, and so the whole thing kind of got distorted. It's almost like when you were the game that kids play, where the telephone,
right? Where
one says, the first person says the school bus is yellow, and at the end, the one says, "Can we take a bus to Yellowstone?"
Now that, at least in kind of Washington circles, became a big deal. What was this? What has been the significance of that number becoming entrenched over the last few weeks, as you understand?
I see that a narrative is settled in that President Obama is weak and that would affect his ability to move the peace process forward. And the truth is, as we see in the poll, and we get at this.
What does your poll show?
He's actually, he comes to this from a position of strength, not weakness.
52%
say that he is good for the world. That his election to the presidency is good for the world. He's got a net positive favorability rating of 41% favorable, 37% unfavorable. These are not fantastic numbers for an American president in Israel. However, they are pretty impressive given the narrative that has come up to date and the coverage of him in Israel up to date.
So rather than 4, it's 41.
Rather than 4,
not astronomical, but not 4%.
But and enough to do a lot with, particularly when you take into account the support or the importance that the Israeli public places on the relationship with the United States.
Tell us about that.
By a 2-to-1 margin, they view the United States as an irreplaceable ally. There's simply no alternative to having the U.S. by its side, to be on its side in international institutions, to be at its side from a financial and military aid support. So you take a net positive approval for the president with this high level importance they place on the relationship with the United States, and he starts from a position of strength. We then
now one of the things that's been commented as well is he's starting from that position, not really having engaged Israelis. I mean, if I'm right, that and you did some focus groups previously, been to Cairo, been to Turkey, not been to Israel yet, not not really gone out of his way to help the Israeli public get to know him. Is that part of the backdrop to this?
A lot of people have said that. I think that is a part of it, but it's not. To me, that's not the most important part. I think the kind of relentless hits he's taken in the Israeli media have taken without being responded to. It doesn't have to be by a visit to Israel.
Right.
I mean, it certainly is a good thing, but it's not. That's not what's taken its toll. I think
it's one Israeli cabinet minister from the Likud, Limor Livnat, talking about this awful president, the worst ever. These are the kinds of things that there's been a constant flow.
At our panel this morning, Gil Tamari of Israeli television had a great way of capturing this when he showed the headline in Yediot Ahronot showing that Obama was cutting the Hanukkah party in half, and then they showed two pictures. One of President Bush with a bunch of young kids lighting a menorah, or Hanukkah, and one of President Obama with Santa Claus. And that is kind of, that's not atypical of the kind of coverage that's been going on there and shaping opinions. And even with that, as you note, he's still in his net positive favorability. They admire him, they like him. They have but a lot of mixed emotions, a lot of ambivalence about whether he's in our corner and how to we want to get this piece done. We know it requires an honest broker in the United States, but we also want him in our corner at the same time, and that it develops a lot of complex opinions.
So let's talk about where this poll shows the public to be on these peace issues. Prime Minister today is Benjamin Netanyahu, very much a centre-right coalition in Israel. What is the poll telling us about what Israelis are thinking?
And Prime Minister Netanyahu is in a very strong position when it comes to security. His approval rating on handling security issues is 69%. It spans the political spectrum in Israel, and Israel is a very divided country.
And does that carry through across all issues for Prime Minister Netanyahu?
No, I mean his overall approval rating is what I would characterize as a modest 48% approve, which is higher than his coalition's approval rating of 41%. So he's especially strong on security issues. 76% believe he stands up for Israel. Important security issues. He's much weaker on some of the domestic issues that are in front of the country.
Unpack those for one moment.
Well, economy, he's at 49% approval, which is very interesting because most Israelis feel that their own economic situation today is pretty good, yet they only approve him for 49%. Part of that's because they believe he puts the rich folks ahead of everybody else. 53% believe that. The character stuff is problematic for him. He doesn't have there's not.
If I remember right, obviously I've studied the poll. Honest and trustworthy. President Obama scores 52%.
Close. President Obama's at 55% honest and trustworthy.
5% honest and trustworthy, and Benjamin Netanyahu's at
36%. And 39% say Prime Minister Netanyahu shares their values. So there's a lot of, there's some complexity in views towards Prime Minister Netanyahu, but I think the important takeaway here from an American perspective is that he has tremendous support on security, and it carries over to his ability to make broad, he has tremendous political room when it comes to reaching a peace agreement with the Palestinians.
Now you asked specifically.
We ask if you trust that Prime Minister Netanyahu would look out for Israel's security or do nothing to endanger Israel's security, and I would support any peace agreement that he signs with our enemies. Any peace agreement was 58%.
Once you got specific, so 58% for any agreement, if Netanyahu's signing it.
Right.
Once you got specific and asked if this were the agreement, and you basically gave what are considered to be the established parameters of what a two-state solution would look like, Taba negotiations of 2001. Right. Obama puts a plan out. Abbas accepts it. Bibi accepts it. That was the question, right?
Yes.
Where did the Israeli public go?
Remember, this is an agreement we put in the terms of this is an agreement the U.S. says both sides need to sign. They both agree to that. and 53% support that, would say they would vote for that in a referendum.
And you gave the details of the agreement.
All the details. I mean, not every single.
But the outlines.
The key outlines that basically everybody talks about and is aware of.
Palestinian Jerusalem is Palestinian.
Exactly. Includes tough choices. The Jerusalem refugees.
Allowing some refugees in.
Allowing refugees in, providing financial compensation, and then the incentives. There's the demilitarized Palestinian state, the end of conflict, land swaps. Yes, that wins 53-45 in a national referendum in Israel today, which are the kind of the harder circumstances right now.
And if Bibi says no?
If Bibi says no to the agreement, citing security and citing the division of Jerusalem as the reasons he simply cannot sign this agreement.
The two hot-button issues, as it seems.
The biggest reasons that people give not to support a peace agreement themselves. But that the U.S. has asked that they do this. 48% say that they would support his decision, and 48% say they would oppose his decision, which is very large in the context of what a strong security person he is,
right? And
that his reasons that he's providing for turning down the agreement or rejecting the agreement are the very hot button issues that people hold back from right now themselves.
And then there's the disconnect, because for me, it was fascinating to have that corrective to what people think of Obama. Interesting where they are on Bibi and on peace. For me, probably the most stunning finding was just how little urgency Israelis attribute to the need to get a peace deal. And this, for me, holds the most lessons for a peace process and the incentive and disincentive structures that need to be brought into play. Walk us through where you saw that lack of urgency coming out.
I mean, the starting point is that Israelis want peace. They want to reach an agreement. Close to 60% believe that Israel will never have true security and prosperity until there is a peace agreement.
So it's a nice idea. What about tomorrow?
We get at this in two different ways. One is the demographic argument that Prime Minister Olmert had been using and was a big piece of their explanation for why they were doing things in the previous government.
And opposition leader Livni constantly addresses.
Yes, and only 51% say that they are concerned about Israel becoming a binational state in which Jews would become a minority, compared to 42% that say they are concerned, or that say that they're not concerned. So plus 9, it's really not exuding a sense of urgency. The other way we got at it was in terms of the economic situation, saying, given our economy and which we know is very important for people in terms of as an incentive for peace, but given our economy and the security situation, it's essential that we reach a peace agreement in the next 2 to 3 years. Versus we're doing okay, and we need to take as long as necessary until we can reach an agreement with the Palestinians, and that plays out essentially even, about a 49-47 difference. I may be off by a number or two there, but it's essentially even.
And then you also asked whether Israelis think that American support will stay as it is, even if nothing changes on the... I think that one's 49-47 and the other one's 50-46.
Exactly. Thank you.
I was just looking at it on my way in here. Israelis are also confident that whatever happens with this Palestinian story, things are cool.
I would say it's divided. I'd
right,
say
exactly.
like
but they
many
certainly
things,
don't feel... But again, there's no overwhelming sense of a need to do
that.
That
is one of the more important takeaways from the survey, I think, for all the policy work that the folks at New America do. There is nothing pushing the Israeli public to push its leaders right now to reach a final status agreement. And even though they want it, they just don't feel that this is super urgent at this moment. I shouldn't say it's divided. It's very divided over how much to
but the questions of what are we willing to sacrifice don't really come into play because not enough people think it's sufficiently urgent.
Yes.
Before we close, anything else that you would want to draw my attention to, people's attention to?
I mean, for those who really are trying to figure out how to communicate and develop effective messages with the Israeli public, I think one thing to take into account is that the reasons they want to make peace are the kitchen table issues. It's a better life for their kids. It's economic growth, and all they believe that this will help their daily lives. The reasons that they hold back from it, and that trumps all the international normalization and no more boycotts and all the what I would call the more elite arguments. Those resonate, but not in the same way. That's not the driving reason. The reasons not to make peace, or the reasons to oppose an agreement that they give, is they're first and foremost their concern over security. They have serious doubts about whether or not the Palestinian state and the entity that would run it would be able to control attacks that would come into Israel after the agreement. That's their top concern, and the other big concern is dividing Jerusalem. And so you take these things, and those are more evocative, emotional issues, and you have to really reassure on that. And the role that they do, if the U.S. says it's going to be there to guarantee the agreement, to help provide assurances on security, they believe that. They don't think it's likely. We asked this, they don't think it's likely that the U.S. is just going to abandon that pledge. The U.S. has a strong word, and they believe it. I think it's an important takeaway as well.
I would close with the following three thoughts. One, from that list of benefits, what I found very telling was how low normalization with the Arab states. We asked them all these possible benefits from peace, and I think in sixth place was getting normal relations with the 22 Arab states, the Arab League. And that's been a big emphasis of the Obama administration policy. You'll get Arab reciprocal gestures, and that apparently doesn't resonate, as you say, with the broader public. Secondly, I found stunning, you asked what were people's concerns, and as you say, it's education, it's economy, it's regular things. 6% cited Iran. Only 6% cited Iran as their number one concern, and cumulatively, first or second top concern, only 14%, and that was only the sixth highest priority, which is so different to what we hear so often. The third and final thing that struck me was that a relatively high percentage are worried when you ask them, and you mentioned Jerusalem and security. Also up there was people were very worried about the division and even the violence that could occur from the settlers if there is an agreement. And that's something you see happening today. And again, for me, it means if you're going to get movement, given how difficult it will be internally, there has to be a good reason to do it. And again, for me, that incentive-disincentive structure, which I think comes out very powerfully in that poll, just isn't there at the moment. So thank you very much.
Thank you.